What if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, ancient philosophers developed 9 specific mental weapons that could make you completely emotionally untouchable, immune to manipulation, drama, and the psychological attacks that destroy most people's peace of mind? What if these same weapons, forged in the minds of emperors who faced assassination attempts, slaves who endured unimaginable hardship, and philosophers who navigated the most treacherous political landscapes in history, could give you the emotional invincibility that seems impossible in our modern world of constant psychological warfare? Right now, as you're watching this, someone is probably trying to manipulate your emotions. Maybe it's through social media algorithms designed to trigger outrage and keep you scrolling. Maybe it's through news cycles engineered to create anxiety and dependence. Maybe it's through people in your personal life who use guilt, anger, fear, or shame to control your behavior and decisions. Maybe it's your own internal voice, constantly criticizing, doubting, and undermining your confidence and peace of mind. You're living in the most psychologically manipulative environment in human history. You're surrounded by people and systems that profit from your emotional reactivity, your insecurity, your fear, and your need for validation. Every day, you're bombarded with attempts to make you angry, sad, envious, anxious, or desperate. Your emotional state is under constant attack from forces that want to control your attention, your money, your time, and your life decisions. This isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to defend yourself, because every day you spend emotionally reactive is another day you're being controlled by forces outside yourself. Every moment you allow other people's moods, opinions, actions, or manipulations to determine your internal state is a moment you're giving away the one power you were born with, the power to choose your own response to any circumstance. We live in what the ancient Stoics would have recognized as the perfect environment for emotional slavery. We're expected to have opinions about everything while being encouraged to base those opinions on feelings rather than reason. We're told that our emotions are always valid while being given no training in emotional regulation. We're surrounded by people who mistake intensity for authenticity and reactivity for passion. We're encouraged to be vulnerable while being given no tools for emotional protection. The ancient Stoics faced their own versions of these challenges, but they developed something most modern people lack completely: emotional sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in history while maintaining complete emotional independence from the praise, criticism, threats, and manipulations that surrounded him daily. He developed mental weapons that made him essentially immune to psychological attack. Epictetus transformed from a physically and emotionally broken slave to one of history's most emotionally powerful teachers by developing inner defenses that made him untouchable regardless of external circumstances. He discovered that true freedom isn't about changing your situation, it's about becoming emotionally independent of your situation. Seneca navigated the most dangerous political environment imaginable, serving under emperors who could have him killed on a whim, while maintaining perfect emotional equilibrium through specific mental practices that protected his inner peace from external chaos. He knew that without emotional invincibility, even the most intelligent and capable person remains vulnerable to manipulation, control, and psychological destruction. These weren't just philosophical theories. These were battle-tested mental weapons, proven in the crucible of real conflict, real danger, and real psychological warfare. These same 9 weapons can transform your relationship with emotional pain, manipulation, criticism, rejection, and internal suffering, but only if you're willing to develop them with the same intensity that your emotional enemies use to attack you. If you're serious about becoming emotionally untouchable, if you're tired of being controlled by other people's moods and manipulations and ready to develop the kind of inner strength that nothing can penetrate, if you recognize that emotional invincibility isn't about feeling nothing but about choosing what you feel and when you feel it, then like this video right now. Don't skip any part because each weapon builds on the previous ones, and understanding how they work together is crucial for developing genuine emotional immunity. Drop a comment when you recognize the specific emotional attack that's been controlling you, and share this with someone who you know is ready to stop being emotionally manipulated and start being emotionally sovereign. The first mental weapon that will begin your emotional liberation is dichotomy of control mastery. This isn't just the famous Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control and accepting what you cannot. This is the weaponized version that makes you psychologically untouchable by eliminating the emotional leverage that others use to control you. Most people are emotionally controlled because they're trying to control things that are completely outside their influence. They're stressed about other people's opinions, but they can't control what others think. They're anxious about economic conditions, but they can't control global markets. They're angry about political events, but they can't control government decisions. They're hurt by other people's behavior, but they can't control how others choose to act. This creates infinite opportunities for emotional manipulation because your peace of mind depends on variables you don't control. When someone knows you're worried about your reputation, they can threaten to damage it. When someone knows you need their approval, they can withhold it. When someone knows you're afraid of loss, they can threaten to take things away. Your emotional dependencies become weapons that others can use against you. Marcus Aurelius faced constant attempts at emotional manipulation from senators who wanted to influence his decisions through flattery and threats, from military commanders who wanted to pressure him through fear and urgency, from family members who wanted to control him through guilt and obligation. But he developed a mental weapon that made all these attempts powerless. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But he didn't just realize this intellectually. He weaponized this understanding by systematically identifying every area where he was emotionally dependent on external variables and transferring that dependence to internal variables he could actually control. Instead of needing other people's approval, he focused on earning his own respect through virtuous action. Instead of fearing loss of position, he focused on building character that no one could take away. Instead of worrying about outcomes he couldn't control, he focused on perfecting his effort and preparation. This made him essentially immune to the emotional manipulations that controlled everyone around him. Here's how you weaponize this principle immediately. Make a list of everything that's causing you emotional distress right now. For each item, ask yourself, is this something I can directly control, or something I can only influence or not control at all? For everything you can't directly control, identify what you can control in relation to it. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control whether you act in ways worthy of respect. You can't control economic conditions, but you can control your financial discipline and skill development. You can't control other people's behavior, but you can control your response to their behavior. You can't control outcomes, but you can control your effort and preparation. This systematic transfer of emotional investment from external variables to internal variables removes the leverage that others use to manipulate you emotionally. When your peace of mind comes from things you actually control, no one can threaten it. The second mental weapon will make you immune to psychological attack: emotional reframing arsenal. This weapon involves having multiple, ready-to-use interpretations for any situation that could potentially upset you, so that you can instantly choose the interpretation that serves your emotional strength rather than your emotional weakness. Most people have one automatic interpretation for negative events, and it's usually the interpretation that makes them feel worst. Someone criticizes them, and they automatically interpret it as evidence of their inadequacy. Someone rejects them, and they automatically interpret it as proof of their unworthiness. Someone succeeds where they failed, and they automatically interpret it as confirmation of their inferiority. These automatic interpretations make you emotionally vulnerable because they hand control of your emotional state to external events and other people's actions. Every criticism becomes a weapon someone can use to hurt you. Every rejection becomes evidence that you're not good enough. Every comparison becomes proof that you're failing. Epictetus understood that events themselves are emotionally neutral. What creates emotional pain isn't what happens, but how you choose to interpret what happens. He taught his students to develop multiple interpretations for every type of challenging situation, so they could choose the interpretation that served their strength rather than their weakness. Someone criticizes you? You can interpret this as an attack on your worth or as free feedback that might help you improve. Someone rejects you? You can interpret this as evidence of your inadequacy or as information that this wasn't the right fit anyway. Someone succeeds where you failed? You can interpret this as proof of your inferiority or as evidence that success is possible and inspiration for your own improvement. The key is to develop these alternative interpretations before you need them, not while you're emotionally triggered. This is mental preparation that builds emotional immunity. Marcus Aurelius constantly practiced reframing potential emotional triggers. He would mentally rehearse interpreting insults as opportunities to practice patience, setbacks as chances to develop resilience, and betrayals as lessons in human nature. This mental preparation made him emotionally untouchable because he always had a strength-building interpretation available for any situation. Here's how you build this weapon immediately. Identify the 3 types of situations that most consistently trigger your emotional reactivity. For each type, develop at least 3 alternative interpretations that would serve your strength rather than your weakness. If criticism typically makes you feel attacked, develop interpretations like, "This person is giving me free information about how I'm being perceived. This is an opportunity to practice emotional regulation. This person might be projecting their own insecurities. This feedback might contain something useful I can apply." Practice these alternative interpretations when you're calm so they're available when you're triggered. This weapons arsenal ensures that you always have a way to interpret any situation that preserves or increases your emotional strength rather than diminishing it. The third weapon will eliminate your vulnerability to manipulation. Value hierarchy clarification. This weapon involves creating an unshakable hierarchy of what matters most to you, so that attempts to manipulate you through threats or bribes lose their power, because you know exactly what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not. Most people are emotionally manipulated because they haven't clearly defined what they value most. They want everything: approval and authenticity, security and growth, comfort and achievement, popularity and integrity. This creates infinite vulnerability because anyone can threaten one value to get you to compromise another. Politicians manipulate you by threatening your security to get you to sacrifice your values. Employers manipulate you by threatening your comfort to get you to compromise your integrity. Friends manipulate you by threatening their approval to get you to abandon your authentic choices. Family members manipulate you by threatening their love to get you to sacrifice your growth. This manipulation works because you haven't decided in advance which values are non-negotiable and which ones you're willing to sacrifice if necessary. Without clear value hierarchy, every threat feels existential because you don't know what you stand for versus what you can live without. Seneca faced constant attempts at manipulation through threats to his wealth, position, and physical safety, but he developed an unshakable value hierarchy that made him immune to these pressures. He valued virtue above wealth, integrity above position, and character above comfort. This clarity made attempts to manipulate him through external threats powerless because he knew exactly what he was and wasn't willing to sacrifice. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who hangs on for more." He understood that emotional freedom comes not from having everything you want, but from being clear about what you actually need versus what you merely prefer. Marcus Aurelius created a similar hierarchy. He valued justice above popularity, truth above convenience, and character development above external achievement. This hierarchy guided every decision and made him immune to manipulation because everyone knew what he would and wouldn't compromise. Here's how you forge this weapon immediately. List everything you currently think you value: relationships, career success, financial security, health, approval, integrity, growth, comfort, adventure, recognition. Now force rank them. If you had to choose between career success and integrity, which would you choose? If you had to choose between approval and authenticity, which would you choose? Keep making these forced choices until you have a clear hierarchy. Then identify your top 3 non-negotiable values, the ones you would never sacrifice regardless of what someone threatened to take away or promised to give you. Write these down and review them regularly. This clarity eliminates manipulation because you've decided in advance what you're willing to lose to keep what matters most. When someone tries to threaten your security to get you to compromise your integrity, you already know your answer. The fourth weapon creates invincibility against personal attacks: identity fortress construction. This involves building your sense of self on internal foundations that no external attack can touch, rather than on external achievements, opinions, or circumstances that others can threaten or damage. Most people's identities are built on sand. They derive their sense of worth from their job title, their relationship status, their social media following, their bank account, their physical appearance, or other people's opinions of them. This makes them extremely vulnerable to psychological attack because their entire sense of self depends on variables they don't fully control. When your identity depends on external factors, every threat to those factors becomes an existential crisis. If your worth comes from your career, workplace conflict feels like a personal attack. If your identity comes from being liked, Any criticism feels devastating. If your self-image depends on being successful, any failure feels like personal annihilation. This vulnerability creates unlimited opportunities for others to manipulate and control you emotionally. They can threaten your reputation, your position, your relationships, or your achievements, and you'll do anything to protect these external sources of identity, even if it means compromising your actual values and authentic self. Epictetus discovered the opposite approach while he was still a slave. He couldn't derive his identity from his social position, his wealth, his freedom, or other people's respect, because he had none of these things. Instead, he built his identity on internal qualities that no one could take away: his capacity for reason, his commitment to virtue, his ability to choose his response to any circumstance. This internal foundation made him psychologically untouchable. His masters could control his body, but they couldn't control his mind. They could threaten his comfort, but they couldn't threaten his character. They could take away his external freedom, but they couldn't touch his internal dignity. Marcus Aurelius, despite having every external marker of success, built his identity the same way. He didn't derive his worth from being emperor, but from his commitment to justice. He didn't base his self-image on others' admiration, but on his own character development. He didn't depend on external achievements for validation, but on internal growth and virtue. Here's how you construct this fortress immediately. Identify all the external factors you currently use to define yourself: job, relationship status, achievements, possessions, others' opinions, social status, physical characteristics. Recognize that all of these can be threatened, damaged, or taken away by forces outside your control. Now identify internal qualities that no one can take away from you: your capacity for growth, your commitment to treating others with respect, your ability to learn from mistakes, your dedication to improving yourself, your choice to act with integrity regardless of circumstances. Begin transferring your identity from external variables to internal constants. Instead of "I am successful because I have this job," think "I am valuable because I consistently work to improve myself." Instead of "I am worthy because people like me," think "I am worthy because I treat others with kindness and respect." This identity fortress makes you emotionally untouchable because your sense of self doesn't depend on anything others can threaten, damage, or take away. The fifth weapon eliminates emotional dependency: outcome independence training. This involves learning to derive satisfaction and self-worth from your effort, preparation, and character rather than from results, which creates emotional invincibility because your fulfillment doesn't depend on variables outside your control. Most people are emotionally controlled through their attachment to specific outcomes. They need their business to succeed, their relationship to work out, their investment to pay off, their children to make certain choices, their health to remain perfect. This attachment creates vulnerability because other people can manipulate them by threatening these desired outcomes. When your emotional state depends on getting specific results, every threat to those results becomes a weapon others can use against you. Competitors can stress you by threatening your business success. Partners can manipulate you by threatening relationship security. Anyone who can influence your desired outcomes can influence your emotions and decisions, but outcomes are largely outside your direct control. You can influence them through your actions, but you can't guarantee them. Market conditions, other people's choices, natural disasters, technological changes, political shifts, and countless other variables affect your results regardless of how perfectly you perform. This creates a fundamental emotional vulnerability that Marcus Aurelius identified and solved. He understood that deriving happiness from outcomes you don't fully control is a recipe for emotional slavery. Instead, he learned to derive satisfaction from the quality of his effort, preparation, and decision-making, regardless of results. As emperor, he faced constant pressure to achieve specific outcomes: military victories, economic prosperity, political stability, public approval. But he built his emotional satisfaction on what he could control: the thoughtfulness of his decisions, the integrity of his actions, the wisdom of his preparations, and the virtue of his character. This made him emotionally independent of results. He could face military defeats, economic challenges, political opposition, and public criticism without losing his inner peace, because his satisfaction came from internal variables he controlled rather than external variables he didn't. Seneca applied this same principle to his business and investment activities. He was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, But he didn't derive his emotional security from his financial success. He focused on making wise decisions based on available information, managing risk thoughtfully, and accepting whatever results followed from his best efforts. Here's how you forge this weapon immediately. Identify all the outcomes you're currently emotionally attached to achieving. For each one, separate what you can control about pursuing this outcome from what you can't control about actually achieving it. You can control your effort, preparation, skill development, research, networking, consistency, and learning from feedback. You can't control market conditions, other people's decisions, natural disasters, technological changes, timing, or countless other variables that affect results. Begin deriving your satisfaction from the variables you control rather than the ones you don't. Celebrate excellent preparation regardless of outcomes. Feel proud of consistent effort regardless of results. Derive confidence from thoughtful decision-making regardless of how those decisions turn out. This gradual shift from outcome dependence to process focus eliminates a major source of emotional manipulation because your fulfillment no longer depends on results that others can threaten or influence. The sixth weapon provides immunity against emotional contagion: energetic boundary systems. This involves developing the ability to remain in your chosen emotional state regardless of the emotional energy surrounding you, so that other people's moods, dramas, and psychological states can't hijack your inner peace. Most people are emotional sponges. They absorb whatever emotional energy surrounds them without conscious choice or filter. They enter a room full of stressed people and become stressed. They spend time with negative people and become negative. They consume angry media and become angry. They're around drama and become dramatic. This emotional porousness makes you extremely vulnerable to manipulation and control, because anyone who can control the emotional environment around you can control your internal state. Toxic people can drain your energy. Dramatic people can hijack your attention. Anxious people can make you anxious. Angry people can make you angry. But this emotional contagion isn't automatic or inevitable. It happens because most people have never learned to maintain energetic boundaries or consciously choose their emotional state independent of their environment. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire full of political intrigue, military pressure, economic stress, and personal drama. But he maintained perfect emotional equilibrium because he developed systems for protecting his internal state from external emotional chaos. He understood that absorbing other people's emotional states was a choice, not an inevitability. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." This wasn't about being indifferent to others, but about maintaining emotional sovereignty while still being helpful and compassionate. Epictetus taught specific techniques for emotional boundary maintenance. He understood that true compassion requires emotional stability, not emotional merging. You can't help anxious people by becoming anxious yourself. You can't help angry people by absorbing their anger. You serve others best by maintaining your emotional center while offering support from that stable place. The key is developing the ability to observe and respond to others' emotional states without absorbing them. You can notice that someone is stressed without becoming stressed. You can see that someone is angry without becoming angry. You can recognize that someone is dramatic without becoming dramatic. Here's how you build this weapon immediately. Start by identifying your current emotional triggers. Which people, environments, or situations consistently hijack your emotional state? Notice the difference between consciously choosing to help someone who's struggling versus unconsciously absorbing their struggle into your own system. Practice emotional state selection. Before entering challenging emotional environments, consciously choose how you want to feel and what energy you want to maintain. Visualize yourself remaining calm, centered, and helpful, while others around you might be reactive, scattered, or dramatic. Develop energetic hygiene practices. After spending time in emotionally challenging environments, consciously clear any absorbed energy through physical movement, breathing exercises, meditation, or other practices that help you return to your chosen emotional state. This boundary system gradually makes you immune to emotional manipulation through environmental pressure because your internal state becomes independent of external emotional chaos. The seventh weapon creates immunity to social pressure: authentic self-expression protocols. This involves developing the courage and skill to express your authentic thoughts, feelings, and choices regardless of others' approval or disapproval, which eliminates their ability to control you through social acceptance or rejection. Most people are controlled through their need for social acceptance. They compromise their authentic values, opinions, and choices to avoid disapproval, rejection, or conflict. This need for external validation creates unlimited opportunities for manipulation, because anyone can threaten to withdraw their approval to influence your behavior. When you need others to like you, agree with you, or approve of your choices, they have power over your decisions. You'll modify your opinions to match theirs, compromise your values to maintain their approval, and abandon your authentic choices to preserve their acceptance. This social dependency makes you emotionally controllable by anyone whose opinion you value. But authentic self-expression isn't just about being honest. It's about developing the internal security to remain true to yourself, regardless of others' reactions. It's about deriving confidence from your own integrity rather than from external approval. It's about choosing your values and expressing them consistently, even when others disagree. Marcus Aurelius faced enormous social pressure to make popular decisions rather than just decisions. As emperor, he could have gained easy approval by giving people what they wanted rather than what was best for the empire long term. But he developed the strength to make unpopular choices when they aligned with his principles. He understood that seeking approval by compromising your authentic self creates a false identity that requires constant maintenance and leaves you vulnerable to anyone who threatens to expose the difference between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. Seneca faced similar pressures in his political and business life. He was surrounded by people who wanted to influence his decisions through flattery, threats, and social manipulation. But he developed protocols for authentic expression that made him immune to these pressures. He would identify his authentic position on important issues based on his values and available evidence, then express that position consistently regardless of others' reactions. This authenticity created trust because people knew where he stood, but more importantly, it created internal strength because his public expression matched his private beliefs. Here's how you develop this weapon immediately. Identify areas where you currently compromise your authentic self to gain or maintain others' approval. Where do you agree with opinions you don't actually hold? Where do you make choices based on what others want rather than what aligns with your values? Where do you hide parts of yourself to avoid rejection? Start with low-stakes situations and gradually build your authentic expression muscle. Express genuine preferences in casual conversations. Share honest opinions on minor topics. Make choices based on your actual values rather than others' expectations. As you build confidence, extend this authenticity to more important areas. Express your real values in conversations that matter. Make major decisions based on your authentic priorities rather than social pressure. Develop the strength to disagree respectfully when others' opinions conflict with your genuine beliefs. This authentic expression protocol gradually eliminates social manipulation because your choices come from internal conviction rather than external pressure. The eighth weapon provides invincibility against criticism, feedback filtering mastery. This involves developing the ability to extract useful information from criticism while remaining immune to the emotional attacks, personal judgments, and manipulative messages often embedded in negative feedback. Most people are emotionally devastated by criticism because they can't separate potentially useful information from personal attacks, accurate observations from projections, and constructive feedback from manipulation attempts. They either reject all criticism defensively or absorb all criticism as truth, both of which keep them emotionally vulnerable. When you can't handle criticism skillfully, it becomes a weapon others can use to control you. They can shut down your authentic expression by threatening to criticize you. They can manipulate your behavior by withholding approval or expressing disapproval. They can undermine your confidence by attacking your choices, appearance, abilities, or character. But criticism is just information wrapped in emotion. Some of that information might be useful for your growth and improvement. Some of it might be inaccurate projection from someone else's issues. Some of it might be deliberate manipulation designed to control your behavior rather than help you improve. Marcus Aurelius received constant criticism from political opponents, military commanders, philosophers, and citizens who disagreed with his decisions. But he developed the ability to filter this criticism for useful information while remaining immune to the emotional attacks embedded within it. He would ask himself, is there anything in this criticism that could help me become wiser, more just, more courageous, or more disciplined? If yes, he would extract that information and apply it. If no, he would discard the criticism without emotional impact because he knew it said more about the critic than about him. Epictetus taught a similar approach. He understood that people's criticism often reveals more about their own character, insecurities, and motivations than about the person they're criticizing. He would listen for anything genuinely helpful while remaining emotionally detached from the personal attacks, projections, and manipulation attempts. The key is developing what Seneca called discrimination, the ability to distinguish between what deserves your attention and what doesn't, between what serves your growth and what serves someone else's agenda to control you. Here's how you master this weapon immediately. When you receive criticism, pause before reacting emotionally. Ask yourself these filtering questions. Is there any factual information here that could help me improve? What does this criticism reveal about the critic's priorities, insecurities, or motivations? Is this person trying to help me grow or trying to control my behavior? Extract any useful information while discarding personal attacks, emotional manipulation, and inaccurate projections. Thank people for genuine feedback while remaining unmoved by attempts to shame, guilt, or control you through criticism. Practice this filtering with small criticisms first, then apply it to larger ones. Over time, you'll develop immunity to criticism as an emotional weapon while maintaining openness to criticism as useful information. The ninth and final weapon synthesizes all others: philosophical armor integration. This involves weaving all 8 previous weapons into a comprehensive defense system that makes you essentially untouchable emotionally while maintaining your capacity for joy, love, connection, and authentic engagement with life. Most people think that emotional invincibility means becoming cold, distant, or unfeeling. They believe that protecting yourself emotionally requires shutting down your capacity for deep emotion, meaningful connection, and authentic engagement. This misunderstanding keeps them choosing between vulnerability and numbness, between being emotionally open and being emotionally safe. But the Stoic approach is different. True emotional invincibility isn't about feeling nothing. It's about choosing what you feel and when you feel it based on wisdom rather than circumstances. It's about maintaining your capacity for joy, love, compassion, and enthusiasm while becoming immune to manipulation, drama, and psychological attack. Marcus Aurelius loved his family deeply, cared passionately about justice, and felt genuine joy in philosophical discovery, but he was completely immune to flattery, threats, manipulation, and criticism. His emotional invincibility enhanced his capacity for authentic emotion rather than diminishing it. Epictetus taught with great enthusiasm, formed meaningful relationships with his students, and expressed genuine care for human suffering, but he was untouchable when it came to attempts to control him through guilt, fear, anger, or manipulation. His emotional strength made him more loving, not less. Seneca enjoyed his wealth, appreciated beauty, and maintained warm friendships while remaining completely independent of these external sources of happiness. His emotional invincibility allowed him to engage fully with life, without being controlled by life. The integration of all 9 weapons creates what the Stoics called emotional self-mastery, the ability to feel deeply and authentically while choosing your emotional responses consciously rather than reactively. You become untouchable to manipulation while remaining open to genuine connection. Here's how you integrate these weapons into comprehensive emotional armor. Practice using multiple weapons simultaneously in challenging situations. When someone attempts to manipulate you, apply dichotomy of control mastery, emotional reframing, value hierarchy clarity, and outcome independence all at the same time. When facing criticism, combine identity fortress protection, authentic expression protocols, and feedback filtering mastery. When in emotionally challenging environments, use energetic boundary systems while maintaining compassionate engagement. The goal isn't to become invulnerable to all emotion, but to become invulnerable to emotional manipulation while enhancing your capacity for conscious, chosen, authentic emotional engagement with life. These 9 mental weapons work together to create genuine emotional freedom, not the freedom from feeling, but the freedom to feel authentically while remaining immune to psychological attack, manipulation, and control. You become emotionally untouchable, not because nothing can affect you, but because you choose what affects you and how it affects you based on wisdom rather than reaction. The transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it begins immediately. Every time you apply one of these weapons, you become slightly more emotionally sovereign and slightly less controllable. Every situation that would have previously triggered reactivity becomes an opportunity to practice conscious response. Every attempt at manipulation becomes a chance to demonstrate your emotional invincibility. Remember, emotional untouchability isn't about becoming disconnected from others or indifferent to life. It's about engaging with life and relationships from a position of strength rather than vulnerability, from conscious choice rather than reactive patterns, from internal security rather than external dependency. If this ancient wisdom resonated with you, if you recognize that the emotional invincibility you're seeking requires more than positive thinking and good intentions, if you're ready to develop mental weapons that have been proven to create genuine emotional sovereignty, then like this video right now and comment below with the weapon that you need most urgently. Share this with someone who you know is ready to stop being emotionally manipulated and start being emotionally untouchable. Subscribe to join our community of people who choose emotional mastery over emotional reactivity. Remember, being emotionally untouchable doesn't mean being emotionally unavailable. It means being emotionally sovereign. The question isn't whether you'll face emotional attacks and manipulation attempts. The question is whether you'll meet them with weapons or remain defenseless. The Stoics chose to arm themselves mentally, and so can you.